Hey guys, it's Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about collage journaling and this really fun and experimental way to spice up your journals. Make sure to keep watching to know more. So to start, you will need a lot of different resources actually. I have a paper book, I have magazines, you can also get cutouts, newspapers, posters, random stuff basically from your paper stash. If you're like me who collects a lot of things, this is the best way to use them all. In different magazines and paper products and paper books, you'll find a lot of different resources you can use for collage journaling. Next up, you will need the very basic tools, which are scissors. I'm using a very sharp pair of scissors from Kokuyo, and glue, but I'm just using glue stick. Generally, you can use Mod Podge or gel medium if you really want to make sure that they stick, and I think for archival purposes. Next up, we need pens. I have different kinds of pens, brush pens, crayons. This is my favorite Papermate Flare, and I think it's fun to also bring out your highlighters. You don't really need a lot of materials for this. Basically, the stuff you need or use for lettering and journaling will do. I also have some stash of random ephemera and random things, sticker flakes, and things that I think would be useful for my journal spreads for this collage specifically. But again, you can pick out whatever you have from your stash, and I think that's going to be fine. Last but not the least, you need a journal. I'm using a traveler's notebook sized one, but you can go big with an A4 size. You can also use a board, but for this purpose, we're going to do collage journaling. So I'm just going to use a spread here and I'm going to start. So what you want to do when you start is basically pick out all the paper materials that you're going to use. I try to flip through some, look for inspiration, maybe have an idea of what I have in mind, but generally I don't go into collage journaling with a specific topic. I just browse through whatever I have and see a focal point, and that's where I start. I think it's also this act of being able to filter whatever you find, and I remember encountering this talk by Ira Glass about, having taste or a vision, and I think it's really important because when you create collages, no one tells you what to do, and there basically aren't any rules, so I just like to go with the flow and experiment as much as I can with the different colors, the different elements, the different shapes. I think shapes play a great role in this. You'll see later on as we continue the composition of this collage. So I just found a lot of different magazines here at home, and I think during this lockdown I started to get into more collage because I didn't also want to use my stationery stash. I have some here, but I think there's a key difference in having a lot of material like this where you can just experiment with whatever you have on hand and being able to improvise from what you currently am using. So I just got some random cutouts. This is one of my favorites. It's a Lush booklet I got from Japan. I keep a lot of random paper stuff, and I think that's one of the perks of what I do because I do journaling, and I like how, Japanese characters, juxtapose well with this layout. So I think I have decided to settle with a coffee themed layout, which is very likely because I love coffee and I think it's such a great way to emphasize it considering I got a craft colored traveler's notebook. And yeah, this is a magazine where I was featured as well, so I found it randomly here lying on the floor. So I was like, just in time because I got to find this coffee spread where I could just cut out the coffee cup and the word coffee and incorporate it into my spread. I think what's great about collage journaling is you have to be able to figure out what you want out of the collage. Is it going to be like, you have the coffee theme, but what particular part of coffee do you want to talk about? For me, I wanted to emphasize that I really miss going to coffee shops. It's still different, brewing your own coffee at home is fine, but the environment of a coffee shop, from the music to the people to the ambient noise. I remember when I was in college, I would listen to a website where they'd play like ambient sounds of coffee just so I could imagine that I was in a coffee shop. Maybe I should do that these days again. So here you'll see that I'm starting to build up the layout, and the key element that you have to take note of here is the shape. I mentioned this earlier, you can go wild by cutting every single element. You can also tear. I think tearing is really a great way because it makes it look more rustic, and collage is really just a mishmash of random elements. You see here I'm playing around with the shapes. Some sizes of images will be a bit big or have the same size, so what's great about it is you can cut it out. Like for here, I saw the word vibes and I was like, instead of pasting the whole thing, I'll just cut it up briefly for like a few parts of it, and it doesn't even have to be precise. I'm not very I'm just OC with the whole layout, but in terms of the cutting, I'm not really particular with that. I think I've become too much of a perfectionist in my life, so I think this is just the best effort that I can do. So I'm also cutting out a lot of elements into round squares and rectangles. I think it's the easiest also that you can do. And here I have the base of the collage. You will see that there are also a lot of layers and levels, and I think this speaks to me a lot because you see how the distribution of colors works from the left page to the right page. You have some light nude colors, you have some dark browns, some blacks, some greens, very typical of what I imagine my coffee vibes to be in this case. And you will also notice that there are some elements that resemble the page color, and I think that's fine because that just gives a bit of like subtlety with it. But apart from that, you just want to make sure that they all pop out on the paper. So for example, if you're using a white sheet of paper, it's better, or white pages, it's better to use colored collage, or picking out a very specific color scheme really works in this because you really see how they all come together. And if you notice, I'm not even particular with the height of things. I'm just like pasting as I go, seeing which ones work on top or behind specific elements. And that's what's great about collage journaling. You don't really have to worry about how they look like. Also, my pro tip is just, don't glue everything first. You always have to glue once you figure out your layout is like getting somewhere, and then you can just work your way accordingly. And some of these are also stickers, so it's great to just, put them all together and combine them to make this cohesive layout work. So here comes the part where I put most of them together, stick it here and there. Usually I don't plan this out, as I keep mentioning. I just see how it works. Also, I don't stick too much yet. I don't know if that makes sense, but it helps me also figure out like if ever I want to put something behind or on top of it. And I think it also is like adding a little leeway to maybe seeing if the layers work or they don't work, and that's what I'm trying to do here at this point of the process. And yeah, I did mention earlier that you could use Mod Podge or gel medium. I think those work better in terms of fastening. Is this fastening right word? To glue things together, put them on paper, basically. Especially if you're doing something like for journals, I think glue stick is fine. I ran out of glue tape, so I'm lucky that I still have I think it's probably my last glue stick here. I asked it from my mom. Thanks, Mom. But yeah, you could also use, I think gel medium works better if you're using collage for commercial work or for fine art. And if you are really making it as a cover, I think also if you're going to do collage on covers, which is very likely, I suggest covering it in plastic or, sealing it together just so it's not all over the place. So I'm just proceeding to add more stickers. Usually the stickers go in last because the only stickers I add are like little floral elements or round stickers. Round stickers are my go-to, not only with traditional journaling, but also when I do my digital collages rather, I do add a lot of round elements because usually the canvas is square or rectangle. In this case, it's rectangular, and it's nice to have some sort of element of roundness. And you will see that, the coffee top overhead shot and this like wordy circular cutout that I did, they're both round, and I think adding that to the right side would add a bit more depth. I think also at the end of the day, you really just want to see how things turn out between the two pages. Also, one thing to note here is it's your choice if you want to make it a full spread where it connects from left to right. You can always just create alternative elements, or something that you could also do, like in this case it's like a 50-50, so 50% on the left side, 50% on the right side. But sometimes if you just feel like it, you can just journal on the left page and then do a full-on collage on the right page. I think that also works. I kind of look at collages like magazine layouts, and growing up I've always been such a fan of magazines, and I think that's really important for you to like visualize in terms of where the layout is placed, the art part, the text part. As you can see here, I'm starting to draw out some coffee beans just because I couldn't find any coffee bean art. So it's always fun to just, draw stuff that you can't find. And yeah, I'm just heading out to draw that. And what is my journal layout without some text? So I'm going to proceed to add that. I think in general, I've been missing the whole vibe of going to coffee shops, and I just wanted to highlight it in this layout. But lastly, I'm using the Caran d'Ache Neo Color 2. These are actually water soluble, and I like how it looks like a crayon, and the texture it gives out when you zoom it in, it's actually very grainy, and I love it because with all the fine cutting and very finite, does that make sense? Fine elements per se, it's always nice to have some grunge, and I think that makes the whole spread look less polished. And again, I really love looking at collage and considering it as a very rustic kind of feel. It's not supposed to look perfect, and that's something that I always try to do with journal spreads like these, and it also adds to the whole coffee vibes of this spread. So I'm just finishing up with some text here because I like writing, if it isn't any obvious. So I'm just finishing up with some coffee beans, some icons, and here you go. And yeah, I am leveling up with my editing skills. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. This is the final spread. I'm just going to give you a close-up of several elements that you can find in this 2-page layout for my collage journal. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!